Hi, my name is Chanel Robinson. I am a graduate of King's. I graduated in 2015 with an honors Bachelor of Arts in Catholic Studies for Teachers and English, and I'm currently a doctoral student at Boston College in Systematic Theology. So today, I am here to try to think through how we can make sense of the Catholic tradition and social teaching in a time of pandemic. So this pandemic has really created a lot of isolation and loneliness. You know, the feeling of a hug or a handshake can really seem like a relic of a fleeting and strange dream. But I think that while lots of people will say that we're longing for a return to normal, I actually think that we're groaning in anticipation for a more just and loving future. When I think about how we've been estranged and sequestered from a familiar rhythm of life, it makes me think about the wilderness experience in the Judeo-Christian Bible. You know, the wilderness is often the site of temptation and waiting, and lots of just confusion often, really. And I think that as a people globally, we are also experiencing this type of wilderness, and we don't know how long it's going to take to get out. 40 weeks, 40 months, we really have no idea. But when we look at how the wilderness is, sown throughout the Judeo-Christian Bible, we see that the ancient Israelites, after escaping Pharaoh's oppression, they wander in the wilderness. And in Isaiah, he is calling the exilic people to really think about this voice in the wilderness, in the desert, calling and preparing the way for the Lord. And even the Synoptic Gospels depict Jesus as being driven out into the wilderness in order to be prepared for ministry. But there's one wilderness experience that is often overlooked. And I'm talking about the experience of the Egyptian slave girl Hagar. Unlike the other three experiences that I referenced before, Hagar's is involuntary. She's forced into exile. After being exploited by Abraham and Sarah, Hagar is driven out into the wilderness with her son, her young child, with little food and little water. She's under the hot sun in this, involuntarily unjust situation of suffering. But in the midst of all of that, she encounters God, and she feels seen, and she knows that she is not invisible, and she identifies God as the one who sees. And in the midst of all of that precarity, Hagar learns how to survive. As womanist theologian Dolores Williams would say, Hagar makes a way out of no way. And so I think that at this time, when we're also kind of in this limbo, this in-between, we are called to think through the wilderness with Hagar's eyes, to think about the Hagars in our communities, in our families, to recognize that those who are gravely disenfranchised have been disproportionately weathered by the COVID-19 wilderness. So what does it mean to live justly at this time? The traditional definition of justice as a cardinal virtue really does refer to right relationality. And I think that right now that also means that we need to invest ourselves in and commit ourselves to the flourishing of one another. During the summer portion of the pandemic, when we really had to pause undistractedly and confront how the world really is gravely unjust, many people were made aware of, a lot of discrepancies, a lot of struggles to survive that many people have to experience and go through every single day. Breonna Taylor and George Floyd were violently murdered by police. We saw the unemployment rate skyrocket, the death count increased, lines were just getting very, very long at food banks, and some forms of labor were deemed essential in order to maintain economic continuity. And what I think we really witnessed here was that many human lives, many vulnerable lives, are deemed expendable in this system. And we saw its infrastructure really unravel, and we were unable really to ignore how a few often experience many privileges, and many are suffering unjustly. And at this time, Pope Francis really calls us to grow in social friendship. And I think that really harkens to how solidarity is an indispensable part of the Christian vocation. And so when we are going out and we are unlearning and we are protesting and we are praying and we are advocating and we are caring for one another, what we're really doing is practicing in the wilderness how we can be in that more just future to come. When we say that Black Lives Matter, it is really an invitation to a future of human flourishing, human freedom, human dignity. It's an invitation to embrace all of that possibility. There is an old African-American spiritual that sings, "How did it feel when you come out the wilderness? I am leaning on the Lord who died on Calvary." At this time, we know that God is still with us, and so we do not despair. But how we treat each other in this wilderness will matter. How will we love when we come out of the wilderness? Who will have our attention when we come out of the wilderness? And what will our world look like when we come out of the wilderness? As we advance towards and journey towards the frontiers, let us know and trust that we make that possibility of a more just future legible by how we love. Thank you.